Hey there, welcome to Concept Hunter. Today we're going to talk about The Case of Scary Shadows with music by Kevin MacLeod, and it's by Ticklebot.net. I'm going to read off the description because it's really nice. The Case of Scary Shadows is a game made for the Bears in Honor of Spring art exhibition held in Belgrade City Museum Gallery in March 2016. It is inspired by a folk belief about the beginning of spring. When the bear wakes up from his winter-long nap and goes hunting for food, he mustn't see his own shadow, because only then the spring can begin. In the game, you play as a bear, avoiding your shadows while collecting acorns. So it's a very simple premise. I kind of wish you'd put it on top of the game itself, because it's just in the description. I had to read it, and I always read the description to make sure if there's anything interesting there. You could have just put it here, but I guess it might be a little bit too much text, and you kind of want this just to be up so people can come up. It's an art exhibition, right? So people can come up and just play and understand how to play. It's very simple, but the concept is really well done. And a couple of the things that they're doing here with the design of the game and the level design works really well for this specific mechanic. So the mechanic, you've probably heard of it and you've seen it a million times before. First of all, I would just want to mention that the game looks really nice. There isn't too many moving parts, but the bear animations are fluid. It's fine. I have a score which is 0. Once I collect this acorn, it'll be 1 at the top right of the screen. And then this acorn, you'll note that it has an exclamation mark on it, which means it's going to spawn a shadow. This is going to happen in the future as well, as the game becomes harder and harder as my score goes up. So if I touch it, I'll die, and that's basically the game. That's pretty much the game. But you could already notice that there's wraparound, and this is really important. If there wasn't wraparound, I'd be in a frantic state of trying to go around the level. And just because I don't want to retrace my steps, I want to always keep moving forward. And I'm going to avoid that, honey, and we're going to talk about it in a second. But I always want to avoid my own shadow, and what this causes is a state where if I want to get this one, I'm kind of scared. It's kind of problematic to get things that are at the edges of the screen, because I have to go into the edge of the screen and then I have to go back inside of it, which means I kind of have to retrace my steps, like I got stuck now, kind of have to retrace my steps, so I have to go into the shadows. And that makes the game very, very, very difficult, and adds a very high level of skill to it, which is perfectly fine. But the solution to that is actually to have wraparound, which I really, really like. And that kind of creates a different problem, but I think it works much better for this type of game. Instead of being completely frantic, you have a much more calm pace, which also works for an art exhibition. It's not people that are looking to play super difficult games. You could just do this, and basically I could just hold the right arrow key and I'll just be fine, which is what I'm doing. And sometimes I want to jump up in order to get in the path of the acorns. And this creates I'd say a winning strategy. That's probably the best thing that you could do in this game, to just continue and be very safe and not get in the way of the bears, of the shadows. And it works very well until a certain point, because later on in the game you're going to have a lot of shadows. And what they do with multiple shadows is actually pretty interesting. So what they do, and I'm not going to collect that one, what they do with multiple shadows, please note that I'm at a certain distance from my first shadow, and the second shadow is at a certain distance from the first one. So it's not like I just get another shadow on the spot that I collected the acorn. It's that I'm getting another shadow, like, 2 seconds after I collected the acorn, I'm getting another shadow which is behind the previous shadow. And this is very relevant. Again, I'll say it because it's a bit confusing. I'm not getting a shadow on my collection, 3 seconds on my collection of the acorn. The shadow will always be the last in the train that I currently have. And this creates a lot more shadow real estate in the level, in the game. This means that if I continue using the strategy of just running to one side, eventually there'll be a lot of shadows on screen, and I'll actually wrap around to touch my own shadows. And that would mean I'd have to the game would become much, much more difficult at that point, and much more interesting. Luckily, there's also, at that point when you have a lot of them, now I have 3, later on you also get fireflies that remove the last shadow, so they make the game a little bit easier, in the sense it's a little bit more manageable. But eventually it's just, okay, that was kind of stupid too. That was kind of scary to do. I kind of want to, well, now I'm running left. There's not much I can do about that. Now I'm running left. But I really like that fact, and the level design also really, really contributes to this strategy, and that it's kind of like what they wanted you to do, because you have 3 levels where you can jump they're just in the middle of the screen, as you can see in the middle of the screen, and you've got 3 levels for you to run between left and right. Even these, you could actually jump from one to the other, the top level ones on the left and right. So you could always wrap around, you could always, it's very cyclical, you could always go around. And that's a very, oh god, that was bad. Okay, that's a very positive thing in this type of game for this specific mechanic. And now I'm going to have 4, which is going to be really scary, because I'm almost, now it sort of looks like I'm chasing them a little bit, because there's so many of them. But also, you can see the Firefly, which I'm totally going to miss, unfortunately. And this is where it becomes a little bit more difficult. The last thing I want to say, I really like this, I like the design, I like the game, I think it's really adorable. The last thing I want to talk about is the honeypot, which conveniently just put up. It gives you 4 points instead of the standard 1, but note that there's goddamn bees, and they target you directly instead of being your shadow. And with that direct, when they're just going directly for you, it makes the game incredibly difficult, and it's simply not worth it. You pretty much, you never want to collect the bees, because you're just gonna die, and it's not worth collecting the bees and getting that 4 points. I'd rather just keep on going, keep on running. It makes the game super difficult. If that mechanic didn't exist, I wouldn't mind. I guess you could do it. As far as I'm concerned, I survived a little bit. They might disappear after a while, but I'm not sure. If they disappear after a while, it might be worth it. But since they make the game so much more difficult, you have no way to retaliate. You just have to kind of survive around them, and they're always targeting you precisely, and they're pretty fast. It's just not worth it to ever collect them. I don't like that specific mechanic, but everything else I really do. It's an adorable little game. The Case of Scary Shadows, and that's it. I'm gonna die. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.